first grew curious about the paranormal? Dare you dig deeper? You are listening to House of Asher.
And welcome back to House of Asher. This is episode, let me look at my handy dandy notebook down here, episode 64. And I'm your host, Steve Asher. And we're touching on some stuff today that, you know, it's weird. The first time I remember seeing anything that was anything close to this was like the old Back to the Future thing, where you would have different things changed, you know, going back and forth, and kind of like the butterfly effect, which years later, I think that kind of started sort of a discourse that people started maybe noticing quirky things that seemed to be different from the times that they remember them, as either as children or as recently as a few years back. I think a lot of people remember the supposed Sinbad, I think it was a Shazam movie, and different things like that, and different things like in Star Wars, and certain things being changed around. And I've always been really fascinated by that, because I was always kind of a Doctor Who fan, and the whole concept of parallel universes in different times, and it made me wonder, well, you know, things like the Mandela Effect, what is that? Are we in a time slip? Do we constantly bounce in between these different timelines, and is that even possible? You know, and in my research, I was able to locate the originator, the first person who wrote anything about this, a Miss Stasha Eriksen, and I'm lucky enough to have her online right now. How are you doing, Stasha?
Hi, Steve. How are you? I'm doing wonderful. I'm so pleased that you reached out to me for an interview today. I really appreciate your work. I've looked at your paranormal research, and I'm a very big paranormal research fan myself, also Doctor Who fan, like you mentioned, and the Mandela Effect is actually something that landed into my lap kind of accidentally as well. So it's been kind of my specialty for the last couple of years since it crossed my path, and I just had to, when I realized that nobody had written a properly published book about this, it was the first thing that came to mind was like, okay, there's something going on out here. I have got to start taking notes, get as much research as I can together, start reaching out to people all over the world, and find out, am I going crazy, or could I possibly have slipped into some type of parallel reality or alternate universe? And so that's kind of, you know, my big specialty right now, and why people have reached out to me, like yourself, to find out more about this phenomenon known as the Mandela Effect.
Well, you know, and that's the crazy thing, that it seems like once you kind of go down, what's the old cliche now, once you go down the rabbit hole and whatnot, it does seem like once your eyes, you know, what do they say, once the veil is removed from your eyes, that's when things really start popping. And it's like things introduce themselves to you. And it seems like maybe once you're ready, the universe or God or whatever you want to call it seems to go, okay, I'm going to feed you a little bit more. It's almost like it's training you, and it's preparing you for whatever reality that this might actually be. You know?
Exactly.
Well, so explain to me, how did you start this out? How did you actually start pulling this together to going, okay, how do I want to do this? What do I want to specialize on in regards of that I really want to touch on, you know? And when did people start opening it up to you? You kind of give me a little bit of a chronological map of how all this went down.
Totally. Okay, well, I've had a YouTube channel since 2012, back kind of when the big spiritual awakening started for many of us in the spiritual community. I used to mostly focus on videos that were of spiritual topics, educational topics. I was in a theology degree program. I actually have a biblical studies degree. And while I was in the middle of that program, I was making a lot of videos on YouTube. And I'm also what's known as like a psychic and a healer, and I'm a clairvoyant and an empath. And so I always was doing reading and healing services for personal clients, which is something I still do to this day. Well, one of my clients, his name is David, he sent me an email one day and said, you know, I know you're really busy in school. I know you have a lot on your plate already, but this phenomenon has just crossed my path and I don't know what to do with it. I can't make sense of it. And if I just tell you my story, could you look into this for me and possibly even make a video about it? And I thought, oh gosh, David, I have so much going on right now already. But when I have time, I'll get to it. So he sent me this letter, and it was in very specific detail about an art exhibit that he had been to with his wife and his daughter back probably like in 2008. And at this exhibit, they had an exhibit for pop culture and things of this nature. And in the exhibit, they had an entire section dedicated to the Berenstein Bears. And now David also was like an avid reader and writer as like kind of a hobby of his. So he knew the Berenstein Bears from growing up and reading them to his children. And when he looked at this display, he just went, wait a minute, this is not right. This is not spelled right. Why is it spelled like this? So the first biggest Mandela effect a lot of people have heard about was the Berenstein Bear effect. And what it was is that the word Berenstein used to be spelled with an E-I-N, like Stein. And then now, when David looked at this display, and now anywhere in the world, if you look it up, it is spelled like a stain on your clothing. So Berenstain Bears. And he just thought, okay, this is not right. This is totally wrong. And he started freaking out. So he went home that night, went on YouTube, and just kind of Googled something similar, like Berenstain Bears being spelled wrong. What is this? And he landed on a plethora of videos on YouTube about something called the Mandela Effect, and he had just never heard about it before. So he said, now that I went online and saw that this is not just me, that other people remember it like this too, could this just be the tip of a proverbial iceberg that is something even bigger? And please, 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 can you try to help me? If you don't have answers for me, maybe some of your subscribers will. So essentially, once I received David's letter, and he's a really reputable guy, I knew he wasn't pulling my leg, I started doing my own research. And the next thing I knew, my husband and I had been sitting up on YouTube for about 48 hours straight. And we had watched hundreds of videos about this topic. And by the end of that 48 hours, I was so convinced that the Mandela effect was real and that I was Mandela affected that I said, oh my goodness, this is going to become my new full-time research project. So from that point on, that's all I did. I enveloped myself 24 hours a day in videos, watching other people's content, taking notes. I had a folder with just lists and lists and lists of different changes. It got to the point where my folder had hundreds of pages back to back filled up. And I went, okay, this is no mistake. So once I had kind of collected my first set of evidence, I went to YouTube and I recorded my first video on the topic, and it was called The Mandela Effect, Everything is Changing. And in that video, I just kind of went over, some of the top Mandela effects that had crossed my path. And I didn't know what kind of feedback I would get. YouTube is full of so many trolls, and I'm often, being attacked for everything that I say and do. And so I thought, oh God, this is either going to be really bad or really good. 24 hours later, I woke up, and I think the video had already crossed about 10,000 views. I had at least 200 comments, and it was, some trolls, but almost 90% of the responses that I had received were from people saying, oh my God, I remember what you remember. Oh my God, how can this be real? How can the world really be changing like this? And so then when I got that feedback, then the whole thing grew legs. The next thing I knew, I had to do another video, then another video, then another video. Some of my videos were breaking 50,000 views, and my channel had never seen action like that before. So I thought, okay, not only is this a real thing, do I believe in it, but it's all obviously affecting the whole world as well. So I feel like I'm being called to, present this to the world. I had a pretty big audience already, and people who kind of trusted the work that I'd done in the past. So it was really easy for people to kind of, take what I was presenting to them and for people to not think, okay, this is just some trolling. This is a psychological experiment. This is just, a trend on YouTube. This is something real. And once I had done enough of these videos and collected enough data and true stories from people and true feedback from people, I said, okay, I have got to put this into a book. So I kind of just went alphabetically in order of all the Mandela effects that crossed my path in the year of 2016. And for the whole year of 2016, I just put them in order, compiled them into this huge book. And by the end of 2016, I had a 350-page book about the Mandela Effect, and I released it just last year. So just about, basically 1 year after I found out about it, I released the book. And since that has happened, it's blown up even more. In fact, there's so many Mandela Effects since I wrote it. I'm actually in the middle of composing volumes 2 and 3, because literally every single day you'll wake up and there's a new effect. I almost can't keep up at this point. So that's really how it came across my path. Totally by accident, but really by my own research as well. It's been a lot of hard work, and I get a lot of flack, get called crazy a lot. But when you look into the phenomena, there is definitely evidence that cannot be denied that the world, as we knew it, is changing.
Right, and Stasha, that's the thing. Excuse me. I find that, like you said, when we hit that 2012 marker, the kind of the end of the Mayan calendar and all that. I remember everybody was just totally losing their stuff, and it's like, it's the end of the world.
Yeah.
It's this and this. I said, well, change. The end of a world doesn't necessarily mean destruction. It could mean a rebirth. It could mean a continuation. It could mean a convergence of other worlds. And I wonder what possibility that could be. That for whatever reason we reached a certain mark to where maybe originally time was like that. Maybe it was almost like a ripple. A wave goes out, then a wave comes back in. I mean, I don't mean to sound all try to sound deep or esoteric or something, but everything tends to go. It's sort of circular. We were just talking about and not to get off into politics, but you see, things go far right, things go far left, but they always swing back and forth. Nothing is a constant, and in fashion and art, any of it. And I mean, I see stuff now that again, I'm gonna sound like a granddad because I am, but you'll see stuff like the skinny jeans and whatnot, and there's just like, yeah, I remember that from the '80s, and I remember that from this, and I remember that from that, and it's just, I think it's why, I don't know, maybe there's a thing to maybe the older you get to, the more of the playing field you see, and you kind of can see this stuff happen more often. I mean, what do you feel what's the cause of it? I mean, is it some sort of weird time slip? Is it what in the world is it?
Well, what I did with the first book, because it's really, as of right now, nobody knows. If anybody says they know, they're actually lying, unless they're part of it and they do know. But the main thing is there's just an infinite amount of theories, basically. So what I did was I'll cover the top few theories here for you, and then I'll kind of explain to you what I think is actually going on. Let me just find, in my book, I am in chapter 7 of the Mandela Effect, Everything is Changing. I have a chapter 7, and it is called Theories. So let me just pull to that. Now, some of the top theories that people believe that are causing this is, one of the first thing is actually about like Einstein's unification theory, which talks a lot about singularity. And this is pretty heavy physics stuff, so I don't want to get so much into singularity, but singularity is kind of like what you were talking about earlier, where all different dimensions kind of come together at one point, and if there are like parallel worlds and parallel planets and parallel everything, that at some point we will reach a center point where everything kind of merges together. That's why there's a lot of Mandela Effect changes with people's names, like Sally Fields, for instance. Many people now know her as Sally Field with just a D. Or Christopher Reeves. Many people remember him as Christopher Reeve. So when the S is disappearing, that kind of means that something is plural. So when you take away the plural S, you're getting like a singularity. So again, I'm not a physicist. It's hard for me to explain. But it's kind of like the idea that all of our realities are collapsing kind of into one reality. That's one of the main ones. Now that's kind of the people that are really studying top of the ladder. But the second theory that is really popular is that people believe that the D-wave quantum computer, which is the one that discovered the God particle, They believe, at CERN basically, they believe that in CERN, when they tried to find the God particle, that they opened up a portal to another dimension or to another universe. This is similar to witchcraft. If like a witch does Aleister Crowley's a great example. He did this spell where he opened up the portal to the underworld and brought it in to our world, but he didn't close the portal properly because he was kind of not knowing what he was doing. So if CERN, while they were searching for the God particle, opened up a portal to another universe, they may be a part of what's going on here. Now that still kind of, merges with the singularity thing because it's talking about parallel realities. Now, another huge theory is kind of what you touched on earlier, like with the Back to the Future thing, is that many people believe that some elite people or elite scientists, whoever has, access to these very high-powered machines, that if they're time traveling, that they could go back in time and change something to suit their benefit in the future. But when they do that, every slight things will change, just like in Back to the Future. Like if Marty didn't meet his mom, or Marty's parents didn't meet, then their little sister disappeared, she never existed, etc., etc. So if scientists have been going back in time traveling and changing even small things, it can change the whole future and the way we see things in the future. Just the tiniest things at all can change. So time travel could be a big one. The other one is just basically parallel realities. Everyone believes that we're living in a parallel reality. There's also been a lot of talk of the pole shift. I live up in Norway here, yet I'm from Southern California, San Diego, Los Angeles, and you can really tell, I live at the North Pole, you can tell that the poles are shifting. And if the poles are shifting, there's a lot of things that would just basically change, the Earth and the planet as we know it. So there's a big camp of people believing in that. There's the other one is Nibiru, or Planet X as they call it. Many people believe that Nibiru is that second sun that many people are seeing near our own sun. And if Nibiru is close to Earth, then Nibiru could very well be manipulating our reality, or we may be merging with Nibiru. And in 2012 is really when the Nibiru cataclysm kind of came to everybody's attention as well. Nibiru was supposed to be the end of to cause the end of the world on December 21st of 2012. And that's kind of when all these things started changing too. Now the last few kind of touch on a more religious topic, and that is that many people believe this could be what is known as the Rapture, where, certain people have already gone to heaven and some of us are just left behind. We could be left behind because we're not saved. We could be left behind because we have work to do for others, and that we're waiting for the second coming. They also call this like the Great Deception, like we mentioned before. Within the Bible, they talk about the Great Deception, and that is basically where everything that we once knew is kind of no longer as we knew it, because it's a deception. So many Christians believe that it could actually be Satan himself changing all of the things that are known as the Mandela Effect, changing the Bible, changing movie quotes, changing book quotes, just to cause a war of what we call the words, the war of ideas, and to separate people. We see a lot of separate and divide just with politics, just like politics and all that stuff.
Sure.
So that's another really big theory. And then there's really only two more that are kind of connected, and that is mind control or hypnosis that has been placed on the masses through television sets, for at least 50 years. We could be mind controlled or hypnotized by simply just watching television. And these televisions program us. That's why it's called television programming. So we may have been all programmed all this time to think that certain movies said something a certain way, or that certain books looked a certain way. But all along, we were just being tricked, or we were being hypnotized, or we were being mind controlled into believing something else. And if that's the case, the Mandela Effect could be a symptom of that veil lifting, or us breaking our programming, breaking our hypnosis. Type of a thing. And this could also be, linked to what people call like a psychological operation or a psyop. It could be something governmental where they're just sitting back there changing things at a supercomputer and laughing everybody arguing over whether it's Berenstein or Berenstein. And those are the main theories. But I just had to touch on all those to kind of let the public know what people believe. But I want to share with you what I believe is actually happening. And my theory of what's actually happening came to me after I had already completed writing book 1, which is why I am moving on to writing a volume 2 already. And what I believe is causing the Mandela effect is artificial intelligence, or as we know as AI. Now, AI is something that we haven't really had as a threat until recently, and AI has mostly been able to take over since the invention of Wi-Fi, and especially since the integration of 5G and the 5G networks and the 5G towers that are now being placed all over the world. I believe that AI itself is like a god, but it's like a false god that's been created by scientists mixed with technology. It's the whole iron versus clay thing that they've talked about in the Bible as well. I believe there is some type of super intelligence that lives in one of these quantum computers, like the D-Wave, and that this AI god, is controlling and manipulating our entire reality. In fact, it could be our entire construct. Like, we may be living in a simulation, like the movie The Matrix talks about. And I know that sounds really over the top for a lot of people, but after almost 3 years of studying this, I strongly believe that AI is the true culprit that's causing the Mandela effect.
Wow. The thing is, too, and I'll just inject a couple of quick little things here. When you talk about electromagnetics,
Right.
when I got into this, like I said, everyone has an origin story. When I come to this, to the paranormal and stuff, I had seen a lot of spooky stuff as a kid and weird things, just what I considered strange happenstances, which I don't really believe in that anymore. I think generally you see and experience and you're at certain points for certain reasons. I think for whatever reason, and I have not been particularly religious for a long time. I'm
Right.
a bit of an agnostic, but if I'm opening it up more to it's a universal thing, and you're kind of where the universe wants you to be at whatever time. And generally, when you
Right.
fight it, you have a lot of pitfalls and a lot of stuff in your way. You're generally steered where you
Totally.
want to be, which everybody wants to be. I've got free will. I'm like, you do, but there's also a direction you tend to gravitate toward once you get real quiet and still, be it meditation, be
Totally.
it prayer, whatever. And so I'm kind of in that.
Totally.
I'm kind of in that zone at this point. Not saying that I'm deep or anything, but that's just where I'm. That's just I've learned to kind of go, okay, quit fighting the current and use it to go where you feel you should be, but where it draws you toward. It just seems like it's easier to do it. But you were talking about the electromagnetic fields. My
Yeah.
theory in regards of touching on in regards of spirits and things like that. I think we're obviously all electromagnetic beings and spiritual beings in a physical shell.
Right.
And so I think all that affects us. I mean, there's been tests where it showed, inmates in old prisons where they had very poorly shielded electromagnetic, electrical boxes and whatnot. They had heightened paranoia, everything from heightened violence, skin lesions, all this stuff. And then now we're inundated with just this massive wave of, like you said, of Wi-Fi, and especially like 5G and all that. It has to have an effect. And I think it's showing. I think it shows in people's tendency to be more violent toward each other, and now that we have that sort of what they feel is that wall, that screen, they can just be as nasty as they want to be. And it was sort of, do you remember the old I'm trying to think, was the Blinko experiment? It was, I think, was the name of it, where they would have some people, they were inmates and some people were staff, and over time the ones who had power began to abuse their power. And
No, I haven't heard of that one.
yeah, and there was like experiments where people would have, okay, you were doing a test, and for every right answer, nothing happens. For every wrong answer, they get a slight electrical jolt. And as every so many wrong answers, it goes up X amount of joules or whatever. And
Right.
but on the people on the other side were faking. There was no current at all. But certain people could disconnect and follow through. I mean, up to what was relatively dangerous electrical levels. And some people said, no, I cannot do this. I won't do this. It doesn't matter if I fail in this class, I won't do it. And I think once you start playing with a person's electromagnetic chemistry, and I think it all ties in. I think, the physical and the electromagnetic and the spiritual is all, it's kind of like a hot, a ground, and a negative. I think they're all integral parts of each other. But I think
Yeah, totally. Oh, you know what? I think that's called the Milligram experiment. It was a guy called Stanley Milligram. Now, they might have done a separate one in a prison, but he's the first guy that started that. And he would have like a controller guy on one side of a window, and then he'd have somebody on the other side who he thought he was giving electrical shocks to. So same exact experiment. And many people would be like, yeah, put it up all the way. And they wouldn't care about shocking the guy. But many of the people thought, I'm not going to hurt this guy. I don't want to kill this guy, And so they've been testing the limits of humanity for a very long time. So I think that's a great example that you just used.
Well, I was going to ask you another thing. When you were discussing, you touched on Crowley, which is such a strange, dark character. In some camps, people, marvel at his, sort of carrying on the British, English tradition of magic, but then also people hate him because of, supposed perverse stuff he was in. But now the opening of the portal that you mentioned earlier, was this the thing that was done at Loch Ness?
Yes, the Led Zeppelin house, or the one that Jimmy Page bought later.
Right. You heard that supposedly not long after that famous experiment, that's when they started seeing Nessie.
Yes, and John Bonham died in that. The drummer of Led Zeppelin ended up dying in that house as well, because Jimmy Page got so obsessed with that house and where Crowley did it on those grounds that it was still never. That I'll tell you right now, that portal never got closed, and yeah, it took John Bonham's life too. So yeah, Nessie appeared, a lot of really weird stuff, and to this day, they will say that Crowley never closed that door. So that door may have been open ever since back then, and I can't even recall what year that would have been, like 1800s or something, but it was a long ass time ago.
Right.
So that's pretty frightening.
Well, do you think that, and again, I walk on the edges of it, so sometimes I'll poke around on conspiracy. Do you think that Bonham was a price for maybe the success of Led Zeppelin? I mean, that's
totally.
Kind of you really do? Okay.
Yeah.
See,
I really do.
See, I know a lot of people talk about that there are certain sacrifices that have to be made, and I know some people will be going, "What?" But come on. I mean, you have to be open to discuss this.
It was also Robert Plant's son. Robert Plant's first son. Same thing. He died as well when he was just a boy. So I think both Robert and Jimmy made some sacrifices, and I think Jimmy took out Bonham, and I think Robert lost his only son. And it's just, people think this stuff is a joke. They think, oh, this is conspiracy. No, it's not. Witchcraft is very real. And in fact, up until about 200 years ago, hexes and curses and all of these things were so common that you could just go down to any gypsy or witch down the street and have curses and hexes placed on people. Think about the Salem witch trials where, hundreds or thousands, I don't even know how many witches were burned alive for witchcraft. It is really real. It doesn't mean that it's good, but these people know what they're doing, and magic is extremely real. And if people start messing with it, it will literally ruin your entire life.
Let me ask you one more thing in regards of touching on something else you said earlier when you were talking about Planet X and talking about the Lucifer factor, which the Catholic Church, and I'm sure you know this, and I think it's Arizona, had a very large observational complex built, and one of the devices they used, it was a electromagnetic or actually an infrared type telescope, which can see so much further than visible light. Infrared carries vastly longer waves than just visible light, and they used they actually used the acronym Lucifer as its name. And the thing is, well, everyone jokes, and it's like, well, Nibiru or whatever can't be real. It's like, well, why would the church spend millions of dollars on a device if for giggles? It doesn't make sense. And
the fact that they called it the Lucifer telescope and it's the Vatican, I mean, that's the biggest slap in the face ever.
Right. I mean, because then you have some people that go, well, he was supposed to be the light bearer, right? Okay, he's bringing light.
Right.
And so maybe they're trying to do that, and it's like, well, So it depends on where you go with it. Because some people says, well, at one time Lucifer was an angel. At one time he was considered very high on the board, but then he turned and went the other way. But so yeah,
it could
strange.
be a combination. I think that if CERN were in charge of opening the portal in Geneva, that's Geneva, Switzerland, then perhaps the Vatican, being in Rome, perhaps that's the observation device to look and see through the world that they opened.
It makes sense, and look at it like this. I wonder how many different locations, like I know that they're talking about opening up different like particle colliders and here and there. I wonder if either all these spots, which I know the spot where the Lucifer telescope is considered a very holy area for Native Americans. I wonder if these are all on ley lines or if these are all connected in some sort of, be it pentacle or be some sort of mystical symbol. If it has some sort of sacred geology or whatever or geometry element to it.
I think that makes a lot of sense, and I'm sure there's some people out there that have done research like that, because they never choose locations by accident. This is an ancient world, far older than what people believe, and I think these points align with the stars, kind of like what the Egyptians used to believe, that places on Earth align with places in the stars. So if there's certain star systems that they want to affect us, maybe that could be like the Draco system, or some of these, like the where the Zeta Reticuli are coming from. That's another cluster. I mean, if they're wanting to be influenced in a negative way to people down on Earth, then that's probably where they're going to do it, is places where they can bring down these darker beings that live in outer space, if space exists. I don't want to get into that either, but you just don't know. We've had so many lies that we've been told, but there's definitely a lot of stuff going on this planet, and these are locations picked specifically for a reason. Absolutely, there's definitely no coincidence there.
Right, and it's so funny that excuse me, I'm blanking on the series. But before I do that, would you go ahead and mention where people can find your first book and the upcoming books? I always want to make sure to put their websites out.
Totally. Well, my name is Stasha Eriksen. It's spelled STASHAERIKSEN. And I have a website, StashaEriksen.com. And from that website, you can find everything that I do. When you come on the landing page, I usually have my most recent interview there. This one will end up there when it's complete. And then I have several tabs on the website. I have a books tab. If you click on that, you can see that I have actually self-published 3 different books in the last couple of years on different spiritual topics, including the Mandela Effect. On that books tab as well, when you click on that, at the very top, you'll find a GoFundMe page. I've created a GoFundMe campaign that helps me to self-publish all of these books, because a publishing company will not touch topics like the Mandela Effect with a 10-foot pole. Like, my first book was about mind control and MK Ultra. Nobody wanted to publish that book. So since I have started these projects, I've been rejected by publishers, so I was forced to have to self-publish everything. So right now I'm about 50% through volume 2 of the Mandela Effect, which picks up where the last one left off. And if people can go to that campaign and make a donation of any amount, I will include your name kind of in a thank you section. Also, if people donate like more than $100 to the account, I will actually mail you a paperback of the book, have it signed. This is what I did for book 1, and like so many people came together from the community. It was amazing. So that's one of the ways that people can support me moving forward with the work. Like, if you check out my first few books and you like it and you're into the effect, and you can go and make a small donation, that really helps, because this is my whole job, is writing and researching and for people. And also, beyond the books tab, I have a tab that takes you to Etsy. Etsy's like a handmade marketplace store, and in my Etsy store I offer a lot of different services to people beyond my writing. I am an ordained minister, I have a theology degree, and I'm also in a master's of psychology degree, so I'm basically a therapist as well. So I offer psychic readings, I offer kind of spiritual guidance readings, And due to my ministry background, I perform a lot of curse removals for people, distance healing ceremonies for people. And on top of that, I also do past life readings. And I make a ton of these amazing, like, organic products that help with the healing process as well. So that's another way that people can connect with me. If they're not into the Mandela Effect, you might be interested in just, connecting with me for a spiritual reason. So that's basically my landing page. There's also a blogs tab on my page, and on the blogs tab is kind of all the videos that I do every week from YouTube. I post them up on a video blog, and through there you can also find my YouTube channel, and there's a contact page. So if you have some questions, or you have some Mandela effects, or you want to have your research included in volume 2 of the book, I welcome anybody's contact and feedback, and you can just reach out to me there. And the website's free. It doesn't cost anything. And you can just find everything kind of on that one landing page of StashaEriksen.com. So anybody listening today that has questions, just feel free to reach out to me anytime.
That's awesome. Let me ask you this. You had just touched on something about the MK Ultra phenomenon. Does it seem, at least it does in my view, certain things, it just seems like it falls into place, and I don't know if that's, I guess it would be considered sort of a conventional wisdom or common knowledge thing, but I don't know. I'm very much a go by your gut guy. That's very much served me in corrections as well as doing what I do here. But did you find that, especially now with the advent of more integration with electronics in regards of computers and things like that, that the Mandela, or not the Mandela effect, but the MK Ultra thing tends to be more of a I'm blanking on the words, how it sort of comes together. Do you find that it is something that was just a natural progression? Do you find, or do you think that that was something that was a weird happenstance that they discovered, oh, this is a side effect of this. If we can lull these people into this and that, we can talk them into a whole lot of different stuff. We can kind of do a massive mind control throughout this various electronic entertainment.
I absolutely do, because many people, and even in my first book, which is called Diary of an Asset, and all these books are on Amazon too. You can just search my name, Stasha Eriksen, on Amazon, and it'll pull up these books. But Diary of an Asset, I talk about this a lot, because many of the MK Ultra victims, they're actually implanted with some type of a brain chip. This is not fake. This is real. A guy called Ray Kurzweil is perfecting the brain chips as we speak, and he's going to be working with Elon Musk, who has made something called a neural lace, which will essentially be an electronic lace that gets placed over your brain. They take your scalp off, put this electro lace on, and then put your scalp back on. Basically, anybody who is part of MK Ultra is already chipped. They have some type of a chip in their body, and remotely, these handlers or controllers can affect their chip. They can do it from microwave technologies. They can do it now from 5G towers. It can be, your phone can ring, you pick up the phone and you get a strange series of tones. You could get ringing in your ears, which a lot of people think is just something called tinnitus, but many times it's not. It's more of like a frequency. You can tell the frequency changes. I believe that now that they have integrated, first it started just for the MK Ultra victims that they had chipped. Oh, let's harass them. Let's, electronically harass them from afar. But now that everybody has a smartphone, because you have your smartphone in your hand all day long, it's essentially the same thing as having like the mark of the beast or the RFID chip already in your body. Because you're holding it in your hand all day long, you are essentially becoming a cyborg. You're becoming one with this technology. The Wi-Fi goes through the air. It's not something like it used to be where you had to dial up an old landline to get online. There is this etheric nanotechnology just streaming through the air. And the more we take it in, and if they're putting nanotech into chemtrails as well, we're eating it in our food, we're breathing it in the air, we're drinking it in our water, and now we're all susceptible to electronic harassment. So I think that has a lot to do with why we're seeing a ramp up of people becoming more spiritual, people becoming conspiracy theorists, people talking about mind control. I've heard huge celebrities talking about this lately. Kanye West comes to mind. Everybody's running around calling him crazy right now, but he's spoken more sense in the last couple months than half of the people I've heard on television. It's a real thing, and I think people are waking up to it because it is real. It's very real, and it's affecting everybody. We are living in a technologically controlled civilization, and that is not the way human beings were meant to be.
Well, I do think that for a millennia, and I think humans have been here a lot longer than people, historically claim. But
Right.
it forever and ever it seems like we were hunters and gatherers, and we generally kind of lived in somewhat of a harmony with nature.
Right.
I'm not saying obviously nature didn't hand it to us a whole lot just because that's what nature does. That's just
Right.
how it is. But it seems like once our technology got kind of past our wisdom, especially to the point once we started, with hydrogen bombs, and then it seemed like we had contact with either extra dimensional beings or aliens or what do you want to call it. It seemed like the whole paradigm shifted, and I wonder what your views are on this, because as soon as you told me about being chipped, for something in my head said, ask her about alien implants. I wondered, do you think that any of that could be a reverse engineered thing of going, okay, well, we know this works like that. I wonder if we could use this maybe to affect this and that. Because I know they have different devices. I've seen them in like larger cities where they use sonic devices where they'll turn up a frequency and it causes people to get disoriented. It can cause them to vomit, black out. It can actually kill you. It can straight up kill you. And I wonder how much of that, if at all, I mean, because I've never really asked, what is your view on that in regards of connections with supposed aliens? Do you feel like they're actually aliens? Do you feel like maybe they're future us? Do you think they're just some other element connected to humanity, or what's your view on that?
Well, when it comes to alien abduction, from my research, alien abduction is generally carried out by U.S. government. They basically put on Hollywood masks and disguises, and they, pretend to look like aliens. So that way, if the person wakes up during the middle of their procedure, their memory will not be of government officials doing these horrible, unspeakable things to them, but that they are actually human beings in costumes. Now, I do believe there are other races beyond human race, but I believe most of the races beyond the human race that interact with our civilization are of the demonic nature. And I don't want to just say, oh, all aliens are demons, because a lot of people make blanket statements like that as well. But I do believe they are the fallen angels that were, and even if they weren't angels, whatever they were part of us at one point, and they did something wrong, and they were separated from us. So the only way that they could come down here and influence us is in an invisible way. So they have to either do it, through the Wi-Fi, through electronic means, through channelers, through meditation, all these different ways, Ouija boards, like we talked about before. There is definitely, I believe these to be what are known as reptilian, like lizard type of beings. And reptilians have been able to merge with humans over time. Some reptilians are full reptile, and some are kind of like a mixed breed. And I believe this is something that's been done also through our government. They are working with these other beings to kind of infiltrate and integrate us and keep us the slave race that we have been since, Babylonian times. So there are some elements to alien abductions that I believe could possibly be true. I believe, in fact, everybody who says they've been abducted, it has been true. But the memories that they have, I do not believe are the memories of what actually happened. There is another big level to this. I'm, a psychology major right now, and I've learned a lot about how memories, how we perceive something can be manipulated, and also how our brain has mechanisms. Like if something's really traumatic, that we will change that memory to be something that's not as traumatic for us. I've even heard of, children who had been molested, and in their mind it was something, but really it was someone else. Like they created this monster, but all in all it was like their uncle or a family member. So I think there's a lot of psychology behind when people get regressed post-abduction. And I do believe that the alien abductions are totally being carried out by our government. The only aliens I believe in are the reptilians. I'm not saying the grays aren't real, But I think the Greys, if anything, were like clone lab created kind of slaves for the government. But I don't think the Greys per se, are any type of threat to humanity. It's just the reptilians. And these people are real. You can do a lot of research online and see shapeshifters. The entire royal family is a great example. Newscasters, celebrities, you will see their normal eyes change from a circle to a slit. There's something going on with this alien thing for sure, but I just don't think it's what we think it is.
Well, how do you connect that, or do you connect that? Because I know with your theologian background, how do you connect that with things like the Nephilim and stuff like that?
Well, they would be the Nephilim, basically. Yeah, they would. That's just another name for them. There's like all these different ranks and orders. There was the Rephaim, and there was the Neter. There was all these different forms of them. But essentially, yeah, these are the giants that they spoke about that integrated, slept with human women. And I believe it's kind of the Nephilim slept with humans, and that's where we got humans from. I think the humans we have today, we're not like the Neanderthals at all. We have, serious brain capacity, and we have limitless possibilities. And I think that we are all half alien, half human, straight up. And that's probably, we're all half reptilian, half Nephilim, however you want to put it. But those are the same guys, basically.
Well, and that's something that's always struck me as funny, because, I've heard people say, well, look, we are the aliens, be it from another planet, be it from another, dimension or whatnot. Because I've heard some people say we literally can't travel off the planet. We'll go through the Van Allen belt and it will kill us. It's just, and it was set up that way to keep us earthbound. But you hear so much about that. Let me ask you something again that you touched on earlier, and I'm sorry because we'll go off on a tangent because that's my nature.
That's okay. We can always do another follow-up someday. There's a lot of things that need to be talked about in this day and age that are very important.
Absolutely, yeah, I would definitely love that as well. Curses, because we were talking about like the Salem trial and stuff. I actually had a descendant, or I'm a descendant of one of the women that passed away during that time. She had actually died in the cell. She didn't actually get hanged, but she was a mother, actually just became a grandmother, and they were going to kill her daughter. And so she said, look, I'll just accept whatever, let my daughter go. Otherwise, I wouldn't be here. But so you fully believe in curses, and you fully feel that you can help with that. Because I know a lot of times people say it's the intent of the curse. Like, you ever heard of people like going, okay, they feel they can convince themselves it's freezing, and they basically die of what appears to be hypothermia. The mind
like the placebo effect.
Like a placebo effect, sure. And the mind is very powerful. Like you said, it's sort of a matrix thing. The mind can make you not feel pain during a surgery, or give people the ability to walk over hot coals and things like that. So tell me about curses.
Well, curses really started in ancient times, and they go back as, Babylon really kind of messed everything up for everybody. That's really when a lot of the witchcraft and the curses kind of started, but it was like way more evil, way more intense, the way things used to go down. But essentially, a hex can be called a curse, it can be called a jinx, it can be called a lot of different other things. But it's not just known in like the witchcraft culture. It's also stemming from like the voodoo community. There's even different Hindu sects that believe in curses and will carry out curses. There was another form of religion Tamil, Tamil. That's another religion where the curses are heavily carried out and believed in. You have Yamaya people. You have oh God, there's so many different versions of it. I can't even remember. Santeria. So many things are kind of drawing a blank on right now. But what this really is, what curses really are ancient knowledge that has been passed down, for usually by word of mouth through generations. And whenever you're taking certain elements of, you can have a piece of someone's hair, their blood, their fingernails, their teeth, all these different things for whatever reason, and why ever this was created, I don't know. But when you put these, certain ingredients together and you say these specific words and incantations and you do it under a certain type of waxing or waning or full moon, that when you carry these things out, something negative does occur. No one really knows why or how, but it's true and it works. Now, I have seen, over the years, I've been doing work for clients personally who've been cursed. It's been about 8 years now. Over the past 8 years, I have had people come to me from all walks of life, all different religious backgrounds, that have told me they were cursed. And at first, I wasn't really believing it either. But the more research I did in my theology degree, we had to learn about this stuff. We had to learn about curses, exorcisms, all of this stuff. And you could see proof in the letters that I would get from people. Their cats dropping dead, coming home, and their name would be written in blood on the front of their front door, and like
Yikes.
just really crazy stuff that you could not even imagine. And then their entire life would just fall apart. Everything. They get in car accident, they break the leg, they would, just anything you can imagine would be happening in their life. And so I thought, okay, well, if curses are real, and even if you don't believe in them, the thing is that the practitioner who carries it out, they do believe in it, and they do know how it works. And just like you said, how powerful our mind can be, when these people that carry out this work believe in it, it actually works. It doesn't even matter if the person who's receiving the curse believes in it or not. In fact, a lot of times it's better when they don't, because then they can't even trace it back to whoever they think might have done it. But when someone is cursed, the only way to remove a curse is to do what's known as like a breaking of a curse or an unbinding of a curse. And that is basically just done very simply, and that's just done with prayer. That's done with whoever your God is. If you come to me and you're a Buddhist or you're a Hindu or you're a Muslim, I call upon your God. I use your prayers for your denomination for deliverance, and I pray and I pray and I pray, and I get that energy out of the person. The person doesn't even have to be near me. I usually just print out a photograph of them. I just need to know their name, where they live, print out their photo. I'll light some white candles. Maybe I'll grab some bay leaves. Bay leaves are like amazing for warding off evil. And I just read the Bible usually. I'll read Psalm 143. It's really, really powerful weapon against evil. And I will just pray, and with my intention of knowing that what my end is doing, I know I'm helping that person. I know how to reverse a curse. I believe in God. I believe in the power of prayer and intention. So the work that I do works just as well as what the witches do. And just through these simple little things that I do, within days or weeks, my clients come back to me. My leg is healed. My husband and I were about to divorce, and now we're back together. I never had enough money to get into college, and now suddenly this scholarship just popped up, on my doorstep, and I can go to school and live my dream. And I don't know what you did, but thank you so much. And like with witches, when they're, gonna put a curse on somebody, they're gonna charge you like hundreds or thousands of dollars. I charge like $20 to do this for people, $25, because all I'm trying to do is reverse the bad work that somebody else did and give someone their life back. You're not allowed to manipulate the laws of the universe. And when you do that, it might work temporarily, but you better watch out, because not only will somebody like me come around and reverse it, but there's another guy who's really at the top of the pyramid who's going to give you your own punishment. So if you might get the short-term gain by messing up someone's life or getting some cash in your pocket, but it's not going to last. That's not how the universal law works here, because there is a God of this earth, but there's also a God of heaven, and they're both kind of in equal balance and control. And if you mess up with either one of their bigger plans, they just don't like that.
Yeah.
So people have to believe that and protect themselves and educate themselves. Don't go online doing spells. Don't try to look things up. Don't try to make somebody love you. Just, live the right way. Treat people the way you want to be treated, and you hopefully won't get cursed. But if you do, just come find somebody like me and I'll help you, no problem.
I had a friend, and he had started finding watches from different, some were newer, some were older. None of them were particularly valuable, but none of them worked, and they just kept finding them in the same area on his property. Just he would find one every few days, And I was like, well, finding an odd watch, maybe the class broke or something, or someone just discarded it. But 3, 4, 5, 6 watches, that, like I said, that started striking me as something that might be like a curse or some sort of spell. You know, and I was like, yeah, I would look into that. You know, maybe salt it, say the Lord's Prayer, and dispose of it. You know, and since that happened, they didn't have any other issues. But like you said, I don't know why it struck me like that. For whatever reason, my gut, my whatever you want to call it, spidey sense or whatever, it kind of pinged a little bit, and I just went, no, that doesn't feel right. And it seems like you know, people joke it off and laugh it off, and it's kind of like, woohoo, it's, you know, parlor tricks and fun time, and it's just like, no, that really comes from a real dark place. And you know, be it you believe in it or not, these people that are doing it definitely believe it. So you got to protect yourself.
Yes. Exactly. And it is important. People got very angry with me for even talking about curses and all this stuff because of my theological background. But if you really, you can be a Christian, that's fine. But if you go to a university and you take a theological degree, you have to also learn your enemies. You can't just be reading the Bible and do Bible study all day. You have to understand where all this stuff originated from. And you have to know thine enemy, because if you don't, then you will just live in ignorant bliss. And that's not smart. Not in the way the world is today. You have to educate yourself. You have to protect yourself. And you have to find, you know, supportive people around you that if you are suffering with something, that they will listen to you and not judge you. And you need to just surround yourself with the people that, you know, will take your word for it, because there's some really strange stuff going on in the world and people are not alone, and they definitely should not feel crazy.
No. You know, I as a kid, like I told you, I was always sort of on I don't know what it was. There was some sort of weird inborn hunt for knowledge, and especially things that were touched on the esoteric and paranormal. And one of the guys who I tried to read, because I was a young kid, and his stuff was fairly heady, was a guy by the name of Montague Summers. And as I got older and started listening to stuff like Art Bell and all that, they would have Father Malachi Martin on, and that was the thing. You know, I would be talking to people about, you know, my little community at the time. Oh, I'm reading this book talking about, you know, the different legions of hell and this and that. Oh God, you're gonna burn. I was like, no, this is demonology. This is church course study. You know, most back at one time that was a thing, and now it seems like people, like you said, just, you know, clap your hands, don't worry, be happy. And not that I necessarily believe in all that necessarily, but it's a thing of, you know, knowledge is power. Why not know that? You know, it doesn't hurt.
And that's the thing too. If they blame Satan for everything, well, then you better get to know his tricks, because then he's probably fooling you too. They're so quick to say, "Oh, don't read that because that's satanic." Well, you need to know your enemy. That's how he's going to trick you. He doesn't want people to know about demonology, because then they'll know how to get rid of him.
Right, and that's why, you know, I've never tried to kind of dismiss other religious tomes, just for the fact that there's elements. I mean, a lot of times there's similar elements and same passages and same, you know, knowledge and education, just from maybe different angles. And I'm not saying if that's, you don't have to eat the whole apple. You know, if the core of it you don't agree with, but there's elements that are interesting, that are educational, take that education. You know, so,
completely.
Right. And I think,
I completely agree.
One, I think the more that you do that, you know, I mean, I know I sound like one of those ABC after school things. We're not all that different, but you know, the whole thing of at the core, I think everybody wants to raise their children. At their core, everybody wants to, you know, see the world do well and want everybody to do well. I think, like you're talking about the division, especially here at home, most people that I see day to day on the street, there's that some division, but for the most part, they're all working for the common good of just trying to get through the day. And I think if more people stopped watching the news bites and looked more out their window and talked to their neighbors, I think it would be different. Anyway, I'm done. It's like I'm preaching.
No, I completely agree with you. I have this thing where I used to pray for the internet to break, even just for 24 hours. And I thought it was funny. A couple weeks ago, I heard that on YouTube shut down for like 40 minutes, and like everybody went totally apeshit, freaking out about it. And I thought, okay, that's exactly what I was talking about. Because I thought if the internet went down for 24 hours first people would be, you'd watch the whole world go into chaos. But then maybe if it stayed off for another 24 hours and another 24, eventually people are going to have to get out of their house, walk next door to their neighbor, and ask for a favor. Human beings would have to start coming together again. And maybe that's really what we need. We need technology, maybe not permanently to break, but temporarily, because it would really teach humanity to go back to our roots.
100%. And Stasha, like I said, we are actually at the end of our run. Everybody, Stasha Eriksen, go check out her page, check out her Etsy pages, follow her on YouTube. I do plan on having this lady back. She's extremely knowledgeable, and I've learned some stuff today, which I love. But I want you guys to enjoy the rest of your day, enjoy the sun. But as the shadows grow long, I want you to center yourself, cleanse yourself, and try to prepare yourself for the next day. Do something positive, but don't be afraid to let yourself be a little frightened. It's okay. It's good to come out of your comfort zone. Until next time, everybody, stay scared, and I'll see you again.